4 years since his last win and 1,302 days since his last fight, we have the return of a grappling ace. I'm talking about the former ADCC champ, Kron Gracie. And look at that. I mean, a return in a clash of styles against Bedoya, Quebec, Canada's own. Everybody loves it. Charles Jourdain. And Matt, when we talk about Jourdain, I mean, this is a guy there. And I've got the Quebecer right there on the shoe in GSP. You look at a guy like Charles Jourdain. We said this earlier. Zhalgas Zhumagulov's on the card. Bad record. Good fighter. Charles Jourdain is the best 13-6-1 fighter that you know. And when you look at him, he is a walking fight of the night. Even in some of these losses, he's going out there on his shield, striking to the nth degree, but he can struggle in some of the grappling exchanges. We saw him against Lando Venata, where it was the takedown attempt, the guillotine submission early on in that one. That was great, but in others, he's held down and he can't really get out and squirm out of those positions like he likes to do. You look at a fight like this, Matt, it's just crazy to see a guy like Kron Gracie. He's trained with the Diaz brothers for the longest time. Just kind of dropped off the face of the earth after he had what some considered a possible fight of the year against Cub Swanson. It won him a fight of the night bonus. He had a performance of the night bonus before that when he made his debut against Aliskerov. It's crazy to see him go away. And I'm eager to see what he's found because I know he found Montana. He moved his jiu-jitsu gym from California to Montana.
I watched Longmire. Hey, Montana looks beautiful, I must say.
Yeah, but the craziest part about it is you haven't watched the biggest show.
I don't get... If you bring up... It's a running joke that every time I see my dad, the first thing he says is, boy, the garage is bright because you got me those lights last year for Christmas every time I go over. And then the second thing is, have you watched Yellowstone yet? No, and I never will.
Everybody has a great show, but Kron Gracie moved the jiu-jitsu gym there. But if you look at a guy like Gracie, and I'll break it down through every single one of the fights that he had over in Japan, then into the UFC, his striking has progressed. It has gotten better.
It's still quite sloppy, though.
It is, and it's really odd, and he's very flat-footed, but he'll chase his opponents. He'll go for the Don Fry Takayama, where, he grabs the back of your head, and he goes uppercut, or he'll grab it, I guess, with the other hand, and then he'll go with straight punches. But I'm telling you, I counted 4 different times in his fights that he pulled guard and was successful with that to get the takedown. 2 other times where he was able to lock his hands, get to the back, and then just pull dead weight and get takedowns. Kron Gracie does not go for traditional takedowns at all, but my goodness, when he threatens from the bottom with his arm triangles, with his then going arm triangle to arm bar, his submissions are second to none. I touched on it. I mean, ADCC champ in 2013 when he's taking on Gary Tonin. I know there's YouTube videos out there titled the best jiu-jitsu match you've ever seen. Wow. But in that one, the scrambles are wild. He's able to tap Gary with the rear naked choke. Kron Gracie is that level of jiu-jitsu player, and I know he actually lost to one half of the co-main event this weekend, Gilbert Burns in pure grappling. But for Kron Gracie, 77 kilos when he was a grappler, so 170 to 180 pounds. Progressively lost the weight, went down to 145. I mean, he beat a couple of big-time legends over with Ryzen in Hideo Tokoro as well as Tetsuya Kawajiri before he beat Caceres. It's just, I have no idea what we're going to get out of him, but I'll tell you this. I'm very excited about him coming back.
I'm really excited about this fight, but isn't it wild that this fight comes down to, can Charles Jourdain have really good fight IQ for 15 minutes? That's a hard thing to predict, isn't it?
That's
yeah, Charles Jourdain, if he does rely on his striking, uses distance management, use the body attacks, he's going to make Kron Gracie tired. He's a far better striker on the outside. He has way more pop on the end of his strikes. He has all the skills to win this fight quite easily, but let's say he does get tired because he is punching himself out. He's overcommitting on some of these strikes. Remember when Gavin Tucker fought Ricky Glenn, or Rick Glenn, whatever the heck he goes by now? My point is, Gavin Tucker overcommitted on all of his strikes. He got really tired really fast because he wanted to impress the crowd. There's a way too deep fun fact about that fight. But that's what Charles Jourdain could do if he's almost having too much success early. That's the thing about Cub Swanson. I know he's had more knockouts lately, but Cub Swanson, we talk about his striking a lot, but he's not really a one-punch knockout guy, right? He relies on a lot of volume, a lot of accumulation, and that's what got him the win over a guy like Kron Gracie, because Gracie was charging forward, trying to get into the clinch, using a lot of those weird uppercuts and a lot of volume in that capacity, but it was a weird fight of the night, right? Because Cub Swanson beat the brakes off him for all of that fight. So for Gracie, I think he does have all the skills to win this fight by some kind of wild submission, because he does have a depth of knowledge in jiu-jitsu that, honestly, Jourdain's coach probably doesn't even have. That's how good of a grappler a guy like Kron Gracie is. I just worry about the rest of his game outside of the grappling, because if he did have that wrestling component of his game that he could use as a transition between his striking and his grappling, then we're really off to the races, and he could be that kind of exciting grappler we once sold the bill of goods on. I think Charles Jourdain is the much more well-rounded grappler. It's just, can he avoid that one big trap door?
That's the dumbest thing you've ever said in your life. You think Charles Jourdain is a more well-rounded grappler than Kron Gracie?
No, I didn't mean to say grappler. That's my bad. He's the more well-rounded fighter is what I meant to say, not grappler. That is my bad. He's more well-rounded fighter because I think he has the footwork to stay on the outside and avoid all of the grappling of a guy like Gracie. I'm happy you called me out. That's not what I meant to say at all.
You wild. Matt, again, going back through and watching the Gracie fights, again, against Takoro, it's the epitome of... That's a 10-minute first round, brother. And in that one, it's the body lock and then the body weight takedown that he's able to get. But I think the most interesting fight that parallels this one, not necessarily Cub Swanson, who's great from the outside. He can switch stances, but Charles Jourdain, you know him for, if he's southpaw, it's body kick, it's head kick. If it's orthodox, it's leg kick, and it's his boxing. And that's the other thing. With Jourdain, he overcommits in some of his swings to where, what did Alex Caceres do? Long on the outside, butt to the back, overcommitted with two of his hooks. Gracie went under it, got the double underhook. He was able to get it over to the cage. Then he hooked his arms, went with that bodyweight takedown. He ended up getting the submission out of that one. He couldn't do that against Cub Swanson, but against Tatsuya Kawajiri, I have 50-50 striking, dirty boxing. Kawajiri looked really good on the outside with his kicks, with his own uppercuts and his hooks. But then all of a sudden, Kawajiri, after 50 pro fights, he got tuckered out really quick, and Gracie was able to pull away with some of those 50-50 Don Fry boxing exchanges.
And I worry about how much that pressure is going to wear on a guy like Jourdain, because Jourdain is really good at range, but he does have a fine Goldilocks zone. Like, he is not a phenomenal striker up close. It doesn't give him the range to land the power. It doesn't give him the opportunity to use the kicks. So for Jourdain, I do worry about, hey, if the pressure starts to get to him, the third round of this fight might be a little bit dull. It could just be Gracie going for the clinch, just going for a lot of takedown attempts and not really being able to get them, because I do think this fight more than anything comes down to Jourdain's ability to manage his own cardio and distance.
48% takedown defense in the UFC for Charles Jourdain. We saw him struggle against Desmond Green in his UFC debut up at lightweight, but if you look at it over on his Instagram, training with former, boxing star, I guess, Ian McKillop over in LaSalle at Donnybrook Boxing, a great gym name. But he's working that boxing. Now, he's one of those guys that's a little coy on his Instagram, so maybe he's posting all these boxing pictures because he's just working his jiu-jitsu. But if you look at it there, Ian McKillop's definitely a great coach to learn from. So you like to see that out of the Montreal area for Charles Jourdain. Matt, everybody loves it when we go with the French pronunciation. They can't believe it, quand on parle en français. But when you look at a guy like Jourdain, about a 2-1 favorite in the matchup. Kron Gracie is the underdog after so long away. I went back and did the deep cut. The last time Kron Gracie fought, the number one song in the world was Truth Hurts by Lizzo, and the number one movie was the remake of Maleficent. I've heard one, I haven't seen the other. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Surprise to us as they are to you. I'm going to say over-under. I think it's actually going to be close. I'm going to say over-under 65% Jourdain.
I think it'll be under.
It's going to be under. Slightly over. 752 total votes. 69% Charles Jourdain. 33% by decision. 60% by knockout. For the 31% that have Gracie. 79% by submission. I think this one's a really tough one to call, and I picked a lot of underdogs so far in this card, but again, I have a hard time on this one.
I do have a hard time with this fight, because that's the thing about a guy like Kron Gracie. When you are that specialist, there are a lot of holes in your game, but if you get the fight to your specialty, you're going to be able to beat pretty much anybody in the world at it. That's the thing. If Gracie fights like... Max Holloway's kind of wild to think about, but if he gets Max Holloway to the ground, he could probably choke him out too. That's how good Kron Gracie is on the mat. He's going to be the better grappler than pretty much anybody he's in the octagon with. So for that reason, he is a very tempting pick, but I think he's going to eat a lot of power shots on the outside. And the thing is, could Kron Gracie get a submission win? Yes, he could. But I think Jourdain could get a TKO win, and I think Jourdain could get a decision win too. The pressure, I do worry about it getting to him. That's why I brought it up quite a bit. It is going to rely a lot on his footwork and ability to evade some of those crashing forward abilities that Kron Gracie has. But I am going to pick Charles Jourdain.
Jourdain outstruck Shane Burgos and had a case to beating him, but Burgos out-wrestled him in a majority decision. And then against Nathaniel Wood's a good striker on the outside. He took Charles Jourdain over and over and over again. I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain in the matchup, but again, I'm 50-50 on this one, and if Strong Gust to win could have me going the other way on Saturday with question mark kicks 2 hours before the prelims, but I really am split on this one. I think that Jourdain can evade and get out of the way. because those takedown attempts from Gracie are so unorthodox, but that could also play into Gracie's hand. And if he can box himself into a clinch situation, Gracie could really take over in a fight like this. So both of us going with Quebec's heir, Charles Jourdain, to get the win. Let us know down below in the comments section who you have. That rewatch of the fight tape on Kron Gracie is very unorthodox, but it's a lot of fun to do. Some big time matchups left on this card, including former champ Jessica Andrade taking on Yan Xiaonan. A great fight there. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.